Hi, my name is Drew Pomeroy, and welcome to this beginner-friendly series on learning RStudio and Shiny Apps.io for athlete monitoring. In this series, we'll be exploring how to create a dynamic and user-friendly web application to monitor athletic performance, specifically focusing on baseball players. All right, so what I really want to do now is jump back into the range of motion stuff and really extract some meaning out of that, because right now we're just showing the data, right? For everything else, we have percentiles, so we read in two different data sources now. And what we want to do is, in this one, we're going to create a new data frame with norms. All right, so we have norms for the different range of motion tests that we use. I've got them here, so we're going to be writing those down. You can make it whatever you want, but just from what we've seen with some of these athletes, the number of athletes that we've had is these norms are, make sense. So what we're going to be doing is creating that data frame. We're going to be going in, we're going to rewrite how we do the range of motion table. We're going to actually make it into a data table, because that's going to allow us to do conditional formatting. So I want to have reds, yellows, and greens for needs improvement, good, and above average. And we want our athletes to get to that above average point. So we're going to be reading all that in. So create that new data frame, rewrite the range of motion stuff. I'm actually going to do a table to pull out the norms for each one of the metrics that's within the range of motion. So we'll get that going just as a check so that we can see it. And then we're going to color code, create that data table for the range of motion stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so I had to restart my computer and load everything back in. And what I noticed, I ran everything and I forgot to have tidier in here. So I didn't recognize pivot wider. So if that ever happened to you, you can Google search or whatever, but it's a part of the tidier package. So make sure that you add the correct stuff in there, really. And we'll get going, because we're going to be using pivot wider again here. So we'll get that going. First thing that we're going to need to do, head down to our UI. We're going to update our UI stuff here. So we're going to scroll down, display percentiles, gauge scores, categories, bar chart, range of motion, data table. So this is what we're going to be updating. All right. A lot of this will stay the same, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is throw in exactly what we need in here. So let's go ahead and do that. This is going to stay the same. Black header is going to stay the same. What I'm going to do is put in our norms table right underneath that. So because I've already got this written out and I know that it works, I'm going to add in our norms table. All right, so just norms table, fluid row, column width 12, again, same thing. And this is going to be a table output. Make sure it's table output. We're just going to call that norms table, okay? Next, what I'm going to do, and we're going to add this. This one said range of motion before. I'm going to change the title of this to be something else, because we had this as the blue header before. I'm going to kind of abandon that for a minute. We may come back to it, but for this next piece, what we want to do is go ahead and get in a data table itself. So we need to put in DT in here. So blue header all the way down to this data table. We're just going to make this look different. I'll paste this in. Let's get rid of that dead space. So fluid row 12, get back into our div style. So this stays the same. It's going to be the background color black, just like we've done before. It's going to be the same exact thing that we've did up here. And we're just going to call this range of motion table again. So we're going to have two tables in there, really, or two headers in there. Down here, what we've got is the range of motion metrics table. So we're calling out this norms table, and then we're bringing back the range of motion metrics table. And make sure, right, we've got that fluid row again, it's width 12, but it's going to be DT output in here instead of table output. All right, so make sure that that's good to go. If you don't have DT loaded in, make sure you do library DT up at the top. Make sure that's in there. Otherwise, this will not work. But that's all it's going to be for the UI. So let's go ahead and head down to our server code. So as you scroll, go ahead and find where all the percentiles were. We're going to find our last percentiles table here at the start of range of motion. All right, so in here, instead of rendering the range of motion table and all of this stuff, we are going to be using a lot of the same stuff that we've already written. I do already have this written out. So what I'm going to do is actually take this all away. because we're essentially kind of redoing this. So let's go ahead and do that. Give us ample space to work with. And what this is going to be, first we want to define the norms for our data table. So this is what we're going to be calling on, and this is the numbers that we're going to reference to color code everything later on. So I'm going to paste this in here. We're going to define our norms. So we're just going to call this norms. We're going to make this a data frame, put your parenthesis in, and then again, like we've done before in a lot of these other things, we're going to call this metric. That's going to equal all of our range of motion metrics that we have. There's 12 of them in here, so make sure you've got those. Then what we're doing, we're going to put that comma at the end here to kind of cap that one off, but we're assigning these values to each one of the metrics in here. So needs improvement, good, and above average, right? This is going to be red, yellow, and green later on. We'll get into that. But for the needs improvement, what I'm doing is assigning 30 and 30 here to ankle dorsiflexion left and right. All right, and the 70 and then 70 goes to straight leg raise left and right. So we're just assigning all of those. So we've assigned the needs improvement up here, we've assigned good, and then above average. And then we'll get into how we're going to color code that here in a minute. Do a couple of spaces, and now I'm actually going to render a norms table. So this is not going to be using DT, we're just going to be rendering a table. But what we'll do is throw this in. So render norms data table, and what we've got is output. Again, we called this norms table back up in our UI. So render that table, get your squiggly going, norms, close off that squiggle, and then do your row names equals false. Otherwise we'll get some funky stuff going on. We don't want that. So make sure you've got that in there. Give it a couple more spaces. Now we need to render the range of motion table. So we just rendered the norms table. Let's move on to our range of motion data table. So a little bit different when we write this one out. Output, range of motion data table, and then throw in your arrow, and we're going to call it DT. That's how you call a data table. And then render data table, do another squiggle. Required, we need player data all events. We know we've used that before, but making sure that we are getting all events going in. We're not relying on the drop down for this one. Like we did before, we're going to go ahead and filter the range of motion data for the selected player across all events. So that's this. We had this before, so if you still have your code down there, you can copy this and bring it down. But again, player data all events is right here. We're calling this range of motion data. Pipe that into a select function, and this is our 12 range of motion metrics. Again, make sure you just do these in here this time. That's what that requires. So we are filtering that range of motion data for the selected player across all of the events. So we've got that. Now what we need to do is render the actual data table. So how these data tables work, they're a little bit different in how they function, and you're going to kind of see it once we display this. So call DT again from data table. We're getting our range of motion data, which we just described here. Options, we're going to list them. All right. That page length, so this one's weird. Data tables can have multiple pages on them. All right. We have 12 variables that we're working with. So I'm going to say the page length is 12 because I want to see all of them. So show up to 12 rows per page. Then we're going to go auto width. Yeah, we'll turn that on. DOM equals T here. This is so we only show the table. There's going to be no search bar or pagination. We have no use for a search bar or anything or switching between pages because we just want to display this on one. So that's why that's in there. Ordering equals false. Just disabling the ordering function. So you could order this by one of the columns in there if you wanted to, but I'm not going to write that in there. I just wanted to show as is, keep everything nice and clean and concise. So let's go down here. Now what we need to do is render this table with the color coding. So we're going to be repeating a lot of the code that we had before. I'm going to copy this in. So first, how do we start it? Really similar as before. Output, ROM, metrics, table, again, DT, render data table, required player data, all events. Really similar to what we did here. It's like the same exact thing. Render range of motion data table. So as we render it as the data table, I'm gonna go there. Now we're doing our color coding within that table. So under here, what we need is to extract and pivot data to have metrics as rows and events as columns. We've done this before. It's pretty much the same code. Go ahead and paste that in if you got it from earlier, and just make sure, do a little double check, maybe pause, and go ahead and look, just make sure your data, player data, all events, pipe that into our select. So the same exact thing we just did, and this is where we get into that pivot longer and pivot wider. All right, make sure those are there and then arrange by the metric. And again, go in here, a couple things to call out, right? We have that negative sign before event ID, we have that names to metric, values to value, pipe that into the pivot wider, which then gets our event IDs to go into the columns as opposed to going down the left side in our rows. All right. Next, what we'll do, I don't think you need this, print doesn't work within, but I have it in here just in case, and I know it's working. So we're gonna bring that in. But then what I'm gonna do, what you're gonna see right here, we're gonna add colors based on norms. So I was just talking about this. I don't think this is necessarily needed. We might mess around with that, see if we can take it out. But in here, now I want to go add color based on norms. So we're going to call this data color. All right, go into data, and from data, we're going to pipe into that pivot longer columns. Make sure you have this negative sign in front of metric. Okay, comma names to equals event ID. This one's going to be in quotes. Values to value. This is also going to be in quotes. Pipe it in again. We're going to do a left join now. We're going to left join the norms by the metric, right? So this just means that we're adding our norms into the data table, okay? We're gonna have our norms displayed on top. Yes, I'm gonna get rid of that later on, but we want to join our norms into this because I want a quick reference for them as they're looking across in these rows to be able to see it. So again, pipe that into, what we're gonna do is mutate. So we're mutating the colors here. So color, capital C, and then we're gonna call something this case when, all right? Your value, if it's less than the needs improvement, remember from our data frame that we made, we want to color that red. Do that little squiggle, color it red. Value less than or equal to good, it's going to be yellow. Value greater than good is going to be green. And then true transparent, it's just going to be transparent otherwise. Okay? Call that off, do that. Make sure you've got your parentheses all in the right spots. We're going to pipe it in again. We're going to come back. We already pivoted longer. Now we're going to pivot wider. Names from equals event ID. This one, a little different, right? These ones are in quotes. This one is not. Values from, and the values from is going to be C, the value and the color. So this is how we're bringing that color in as well. Pipe that in and arrange by metric. So super similar to what we've done before. Now, we just added color based on norms. Now we need to render as a data table with conditional formatting. So this is a lot of repeated code, but this is going to get us to where we need to go. So let's do a couple lines, paste this in. Render as data table with conditional formatting. Okay. DT, data table, we're pulling in data colored now. Options, we want to list them. And we got to do the same thing. Page length is 12, auto width is true, DOM equals T. So we don't want to show search bar or pagination. The ordering is false, right? Because we do left join, we have to do all the same exact stuff. Again, ordering false. All right, pipe that into the format style. So this is where we look at the columns, names, anything that is a part of the data colored, names and data colored in metric and color. The background color is going to be equal to style equal, and then make sure you put the C in here. We're gonna go red, yellow, green, red, yellow, green. I believe this is only gonna work for 2 events. So if we had more events, I think we'd need to figure out a better way to do that. But for right now, for us to get value from this project that we've got going on, this is what we are working with. So let me get rid of this dead space, and we can go ahead and run this and make sure that everything is looking the way we need to. So we'll go back to the UI, boom, boom, and run our app. Hopefully. Here you can see we've got our range of motion metrics. Here, nice, we are gonna get rid of this eventually, but we do know this is where that needs improvement, good, above average came in, right? So we have ankle dorsiflexion left. We have those 30s assigned, and it's the 44.9, and it's the 45. Awesome, we've got that displayed. And super cool here, we now have our metric. If it needs improvement, let me back out a little bit just so this all kind of lines up a little better, because it is auto width, right? So it automatically changes based on how you're viewing it. We have all of our metrics going down. Ankle dorsiflexion left, right, shoulder left, right, straight leg left, right. Awesome, we've got those 12 rows. It's cool that it numbered it for us so we can see that. But what's really cool is that we now have the value event 1, value event 2, and then color event 1, color event 2. What I want to do is get rid of these columns and make these ones colored, but right now what we've done is provide value for this range of motion section, which is ultimately what we wanted. So from here we can do a little bit more stuff to make the colors look a little bit better and not have it say red, red, green, green, yellow, red, whatever. But now we're saying, hey, you're good here, you're not good here, and we know that we've got areas that we can improve on. So when eventually we go to suggest a training program, we know, hey, if your movement score, falls below 60, we always want to give you a movement-based training program, and then we're going to build on strength and power from there, whatever it may be. So really cool now that we're able to go ahead and see this. We're deriving value for our range of motion, and as we scroll down, we're getting those percentiles in here, so we know what's good, we know what's bad. So just really awesome to see this come together like this, and we're at the point now where it's actually deriving some value for the athlete and the coach, whoever's programming for these athletes, getting them the values that they need to aid in their decision-making process. So from here, what we'll do is go ahead and try to get this color, the color events, actually the colors into the value events. And maybe we can change what these names look like, just so it looks a little cooler. But yeah, we are well on our way. All right, so after some testing, I don't believe that we're going to be able to get those columns to update with that conditional formatting just based on how it's getting called in. If anybody knows a good way to do that, I would love to hear it in the comments. But here's the workaround I've got, and bear with me, there's also a ton of formatting we're going to do. So as we're looking here, I threw in this header here so we could easily find it for range of motion color testing so that it pops up here. So we're here. Add color based on norms. That stays the same. I'm gonna head down here, and what we're gonna type in is this. So dynamically update column names to remove underscores and add labels. So what this is saying is we're gonna call names of the data colored table. G sub, we're gonna remove those underscores. I didn't like them there. I thought they looked like trash. So we're going to replace the underscores with that blank in there. Call names data. So replace underscores. In this, we're not replacing underscores with spaces. We are replacing where it says value. I just didn't like how that looked. I just want to say event 1. I don't want to say a value event 1. So it replaces value with spaces. All right. Next, what we're going to do is define the position of the columns for styling the borders. So I wanted to have definitive breaks between the norms that are displayed and then the actual values, and then for the colors, we're gonna do two things. One, remove the text that's in them, and then two, put in like a gray borderline so that you can easily see, that event 1 and event 2. So define the positions. Border after calls, that's pretty self-explanatory, I'd say. I want this to be after metric and after above average, and then rendering as data table with conditional formatting. That's when we're going to get into a bunch of stuff. So first, I just want to show you what it looks like. Start with product. Let's go down. So this is what it's going to look like. This is where we put in that line after metric and the line after above average, okay? And then I'm going to show you how we go in and add that gray line in here and how we remove that text. So that way we say, awesome, cool. We've got all of our metrics here. They're going across. Everything is also centered, you'll see now. Remove that text in there, add stuff in. And then we actually expanded this. So we wrote in, I think it used a little CSS code. Again, I was looking all this stuff up as I was going through and just playing around with what worked because I'm a beginner in a lot of this. So anyway, let's hop back in and see where we did all of that. And I'll run through it the best I can. So in here, border after columns, we did that. Render as, we'll do other stuff down below, but we'll be calling above on this. Render as data table with conditional formatting. So DT, blah, 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 we've done that. 12, blah, blah, blah. Ordering false. After ordering, we're gonna add in this column defs, all right? Column defs, and then list, and then we're gonna list again, class name, I'm gonna call this DT center. Targets is going to be all, so this center aligns text for all columns. Huge. This one, we're gonna center align the headers. So same thing, class name DT header center, targets all. So that's pretty self-explanatory, pretty cool trick I just learned. Then I'm gonna set the width. So this list width, we're setting to 250 px. So this is going to target column names metric here, okay? So I wanted to expand that metric one because we had more words in those. It was stacking on top of each other and making the table super long. So what this line does is say, hey, let's make that 250 px, all right? I don't know if we can go above that. I tried to do 400 and it didn't really work. So we'll keep it at 250 for now. I might mess around with it later. This next one, apply styling to color columns. So list targets equals which grepl for color. So this is how we say, hey, if it starts with color, go in and apply styling to these color columns. This is that CSS code. So created cell JS, honestly, no idea what any of this stuff means. I asked ChatGPT and it worked, so I'm rolling with it. Function, TD, cell data, we used that before, row data, row call, whatever all this means. And this adds a gray border in. So that's what I wanted to do for the color columns. I wanted to add that vertical gray border because it's just like, you know, if you have red and red, it just looks like one continuous red rectangle for both columns. So I'm adding a gray border so we can, you know, it defines the colors a little bit easier to see. Init complete, we do this again. I don't know. It's fitting to this is the container, right? So this is fitting into 100% of the container for that table. So I wanted it to be as long as my fluid row that was above it for the header. So that's what this line of code does. Then we come in, we go in and pipe. What we do is format style. So columns, grep, we're looking again into that color columns. Names, data colored value equals true. Background color, so this is setting the background color. Then I added down here color equals transparent. That ensures that no text is then displayed. All right, so in all of those color columns, no text is displayed. Awesome. We're going into another format. There's a ton of these format styles, so bear with me in this. So columns, which column? So for metric, the column index for metric, border right, I want a 1 point solid gray line. So that added a border for metric. And that's what we did when we called back up here, right? We said border after columns. This is exactly what we're calling back to. So come back, columns, border, right above average. So that's our metric above average. Format style, set diff, names, metric, apply to all columns except metric. So that's the center align. I wanted my leftmost column, my metric column, to have everything still off to the left so that it was aligned that way, but then everything else is centered. So that's what this format style is doing in here. And then we are center middle. So in my data colored, it was treating those differently. I wanted the text align to be center. I wanted the vertical align to be middle. So that is just making sure that, you know, our color stuff in there is good to go, or the headers there at least. And that'll do it. So that was a lot, but let's go back and check it out one more time. Pop in here and run it. And let's scroll down so we can see, yes, we've got this to be a little bit bigger. Everything is centered. It just looks a hell of a lot cleaner. I guess this actually doesn't left align, it centers align. So I misspoke there, but I still think it looks good. Honestly, I'm not gonna mess with it anymore. I think this is fine. A good test will be adding another event in for one of the players to see if this dynamically updates, and if it doesn't, it's back to the drawing board again for this. This is one of the areas that I think is continuously evolving. Even in Google Sheets, I had to do a bunch of stuff to get this to continuously evolve and keep going on. So for where it is right now, this is working right, and I can ad hoc that as needed, and just know that that's, you know, a place that's going to be a little troublesome in the future maybe, but you know, we've learned a lot in this journey so far to be able to troubleshoot that. So I'll add a break in here to make it look a little bit better. I'm going to remove this from the UI so it doesn't pop in there, because we do have our needs improvement good and above average here. We've removed those underscores, so I think it's looking pretty visually appealing so far. So let's go ahead into the UI and remove that one. Let's go to our main panel, gauge scores, range of motion. Cool, there's the black one, norms table. I'm just gonna comment this out, because maybe I wanna use this in the future, who knows? So, comment out the norms table, and let's see if that did what we wanted it to do. And awesome, norms table is gone. Let's get rid of the header for it. So we just have that, and let's add the break below. So we'll go back up to the user interface, main panel, gauge scores, norms table. This was range of motion norms. I'm also just gonna comment this out, because maybe I want to bring this back later at some point. I'll just have it there. And let's get rid of that. And then let's put a break after range of motion table. Nice. I believe let's go check where we've done breaks before. And it's just this BR, so it's gonna go above where we had our parenthesis and comma. So let's go here. Boom. Break. And expected comma after expression. No, it's after this expression. Great. User interface. Let's check her out now. Nice. Range of motion metrics table. That's looking good. I think we're going to have to put a break in here as well. And that break actually didn't work how I wanted it to. Add break between sections. Ah. Okay. Instead of having it here, we'll add it right after and add a comma. And if that's going to work properly, I also want to do that after the categories bar chart. Okay. Let's run it. And nice, we got that little break in there, and we got a little break in here. I think that looks pretty good. Just visually, pretty visually appealing. And I'm scrolling, looking on the recording. I think that looks good too. Sweet. So let's do something here as well. Let's move our percentiles for selected metrics below our overall score. And then what I like to do, I'm gonna go on a journey more with this range of motion stuff. It seems simple, but I do want like a real visual for it as opposed to just this. You could definitely ride with this, but yeah, let's see if we can get like an image over here for it, a body map of sorts. But I'm gonna keep the side panel going all the way down. I'm actually gonna start inserting like JPEGs or PNGs that kind of describes like what the 10.5 test is. So like maybe somebody enacting a CMJ I can throw in here. Same thing for bilateral. Upper body power, maybe I've got something that's like, so I can find an image of somebody with a med ball doing something here, and this is like the downward slam, so maybe I can find somebody doing a downward slam. And then same thing for rotational power, maybe I can find somebody tossing a med ball to the side or something. But I want to add those images in here, so we'll pretty much just be adding a bunch of breaks in there and then adding images in and then sizing those images. And I think that's really going to kind of be the cherry on top for this. So yeah, let's get it going. After that, I'd love to do a couple other things. I won't call them out now. But yeah, we're gonna We're going to make this thing pretty cool. Hopefully maybe get like a login going. So if a player just wanted to see their own stats, I don't know if it's possible. We'll see. But anyway, stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay updated on the next video, and I'll see you in the next one.